Hey developers, today we're going to create a new application using Amplify, and we're going to look at how easy it is to add in protected routes, to add authentication, and to create a Lambda function that you can only use if you're an authenticated user. So I'm going to go through step by step on how to create this application. I'm going to give you a quick demo of it. Let's take a look. Okay, so here's the app. For first thing you can see is that we have this login page here where you can log in, which we also have a home route. Then we have these protected routes that automatically redirect to login. If you log into one of them, let's say I click on the second protected route and I log in, it's going to log in and it's going to redirect back to that second protected route. For example, this first protected route, this is backed by a Lambda function. So if I click this button, it's contacting a Lambda function and returning a joke back to the front end. You can see here, so this is all on AWS using AWS Amplify, and it just takes a few moments to get set up. So let's take a look at how to create this app and how you too can protect your application using authentication. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. So we're gonna set up this application we're gonna create and create all the auth guards and all our Amplify stuff. So let's begin. So first we're gonna use create React app to begin. So we'll do create React app. We're gonna call it YT auth guard. And this will go ahead and create a React 18 package for us. It's okay to proceed. Okay, great. So I have that installed. And now I want to go into the new folder that it just created. So I'll go into the YT auth guard and I want to install a few things. So we're going to install the AWS Amplify UI React library, which is we're going to use for our visuals for our Authenticator. And we're going to also install AWS Amplify. And we need React Router DOM at 6. And this will just take a moment. Okay, that's installed. And now I want to make sure that I have the latest version of the Amplify CLI. So from here, I'm going to do Amplify. I'll do npm I at AWS Amplify /CLI -g, and that'll install it globally. And this will just make sure I have the latest version, which as of this recording is 8. Okay, it's installed. If I do amplify -version, it should tell me I have the latest 8 as of this recording. So always do that when you're working with Amplify because they're always coming up with new versions of the Amplify CLI, and it's a good idea to do it. Oops, npm run start, that is. This should create a development server. Cool, so it's up and running. This works, but there is, if you look inside the console, it tells you that React DOM render is no longer supported in React 18. Use create root instead. As of this recording, create React app will install React 18, but it doesn't configure it with the correct renderer. So we can quickly fix that. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I have the app open up here in VS Code that we just created. And to change that around, I'm just going to go to the index.js. I'm just going to comment all this out right here. And the real new way to do it is we're going to use this create root. So I'm going to come down here, import create root. And that's from React DOM /client. And then I need to create my container. So I'm going to do it like this. Just going to grab this one. Instead of root, yeah, we'll leave it as root. And then I'll do const root equals create root, which we just provided here. And actually, this is actually capital R. Create root. And then we're going to pass in, we're going to const container this. Pass in this container. And then we can do root.render. And then we're going to pass in our app. And if we did that all correctly, it should work. So it's just saving. Cool, and I'm just going to delete some of this extra stuff we don't need. And then we don't need this React DOM anymore. Cool, so let's take a look here. If we go back here, we're going to run... Let's see here. We're going to run npm run start, if I can spell it right. And it should run. Okay, it's starting the development server. Let's see if it loads. Cool. So now it loaded. And if we go into the console, cool, we don't get any messages anymore about not using the right render engine. So now we have essentially added in a React 18 app, but we haven't done much. Okay, let's see if we can set up some authentication in our app. So I have my server running. I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I'm going to make this a little bigger so everybody can see. And first thing we need to do is we're in the correct folder. We're in our app folder. I'm going to run Amplify Init. Now, if this is the first time running this, it may ask you to log into your console. Make sure that you sign up for a free AWS account. There is an AWS free tier, which is free for a whole year. If you don't know, you can sign up it basically for free, and it gives you tons of hours and compute stuff. And even if you are past that free year, it is very cheap for all of what I'm doing right here. So I would highly recommend doing that. And they actually have free tiers already in a lot of the stuff I'm showing you for. And so we're gonna just start here. Enter name of the project. So I'm gonna call it YT AuthGuard. And yep, that looks good. I'm just gonna leave the defaults there. I'm using my profile, set up new user. So it's gonna log into my console here. So I'm gonna do this on another page, and I'll go ahead and do that, and let's take 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna set this up in US West 2. Yep, new username. Now on the other screen, it's gonna ask me a few questions. I'll go ahead and do that real quickly. Okay, so I went ahead and created all my account information. Perfect. So it went ahead and created, basically initialized this app as an Amplify app, made me log in and everything. So now I should be able to add auth. So I'm going to Amplify add auth. And so this is going to allow us to do authentication with our app. So I'm going to do default configuration. I'm going to do email. Nope, I'm just going to leave all the default. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a function. So I want to add in a Lambda function. So Lambda serverless. Yep, we're going to call YT AuthGuard node. We're going to use hello world. And I'm not going to do any advanced configuration settings. I'm not going to edit the Lambda now. We'll edit it later. Great. And now I'm going to do Amplify add API. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to have an authentication layer. I'm going to have a function, and now I'm going to have an API, which allows me to use it. I'm going to use REST, and we'll just call it project API guard 1. And we're going to do /jokes. So we're going to create a jokes API, and we're going to create a new Lambda function. Oops. So now we're going to do Amplify add API. We're going to use REST, and we're going to call it API guard 1. And I'm going to use jokes as the path. And I'm going to use a Lambda function we already created, which is the one that I already did earlier, the YT AuthGuard. And I'm going to restrict API access. Now I'm going to change this later on. I'm going to use my own Authorizer, but just to show you guys, I can do yes here. Essentially, I only want authenticated users to be able to use it, and they should be able to do everything, create, update, read, or delete. And nope, I don't want another path. Cool. So now I have in everything I want for the Amplify. But what I want to do is I want to go and update that function really quickly. And then we're going to be using it later on in this video. And of course, if this doesn't interest you, you can skip forward. But people always ask me, how do you, after you create this authentication authorization, like how do you actually only go to protected routes and connect to like a protected Lambda function? So that's what I'm showing you here today. So you can see here there's this new folder called Amplify. And inside this folder, there's a backend folder, and then there's an auth folder. And then inside this auth folder is some of the information about our authentication that we created. But we also have this function folder, and inside this function we have source, and we have this index.js, and essentially this is the Lambda function that we are going to be using today. What we want to do though is we want to create something very simple. I'm going to uncomment this out for cores. Is we want to be able to create like a jokes API. It just returns a simple joke. Now there's a lot of free APIs out there we can use, but we'll just set one up through here so we'll have our own jokes API, and it'll actually use another jokes API. to do it. So I'm going to create a new file in here called jokes.mjs. And since we're using, this is a Node project with Node, and it supports this ESM versus CJS. I'm not going to get into it. Basically, we can do ECMAScript modules and do imports, but we have to put the .mjs, or we can use TypeScript as well. However, though, that's a little bit more setup. So I'm going to show you how I would do this. First, I need to make sure I have Axios installed in a couple of places. So I'm going to install Axios in the root, which I didn't do earlier. So this is a library that'll help us do requests out. But I also need to actually go into this folder. So I'm going to go into Amplify, backend, then function, then YTGuard, and then source. And I want to make sure I have, because there's a whole package.json in here, I'm going to do an npm I Axios. So I'm going to just use this Axios in the back end. You can see here, now I have Axios as a dependency, which is perfect. And so let's go and write the code for that. So we're going to import Axios from Axios. And I'm going to create a new get joke. Get jokes makes sense. It's async. And this is going to try, we're going to do a const response. And looks like our autocomplete could help us, but we're going to type this out. Axios.get. And I already looked this up before this video, but it's we're going to do dad jokes. So we're going to do iCanHasDadJoke.com. And then to do this right, we need to add in some headers, because as I was testing this, I noticed it didn't work unless I added these headers. So I'm going to do accept. It's going to be application JSON, and then I have to add a user agent, otherwise it doesn't like it. Once again, this is just a quirk of this API. So I'm going to do axios.21.1, and that should be it. And then I'm going to, if it works correctly, I'm going to console log received to check it out of the response.data, and then I'm going to return response.data. I think that's all we need. And then we're going to have a catch here. So if we have any errors, and this catch will just console log the error, ER. Cool. So here is our new jokes API, just doing this Axios get iCanHasDadJoke, and it's going to, if everything goes well, it'll return back JSON, and we'll have the information we need. So now inside our index.js file, we have the export handler. What we can do here is we'll do const get joke. This will be equals await import, and if we did this right, it should be get, I think we called it jokes.mjs. And now, well, then we'll go const joke equals await get joke. And now we should have the joke there because it'll get it. And now in our return statement, we're just going to return joke.joke. Okay, so if we did this right, we should have it. We can now test it real quickly. If we do amplify mock function, it's going to try to run the function, asking me the source file. I'm not going to send it anything. So it says get joke is not a function. So maybe I did that wrong. Get jokes. That should be get with an S at the end. S. That's cool that you can kind of test it locally here. I'm going to mock it again. Enter. Okay, cool. So in the body of the message, it has this, my boss told me to attach two pieces of wood together. I totally nailed it. Nice. So the next thing we need to do is push this all up. So if we go amplify status, it should tell us everything that we have to push up. So we have our auth, We have our function and our API. So I'm going to do amplify push and -y, and this should push it up the cloud, and this will just take a moment. Okay, so everything's been uploaded to the cloud, and we have one more step I want to do, and that is to configure our authorizer so only us logged in, authenticated person will be able to see the Lambda information that we just created. So first, I'm going to bring the screen over here, log back into your Amazon console, if your AWS console, if you haven't already done so, and then you just type in API Gateway. Go into your API Gateway, click on the API that we created. This API guard 1 is it. Then we're going to click on Authorizers, create new authorizer. We're going to call this YT guard authorizer. We're going to choose Cognito. It's going to ask us the user pool, so we're going to look at it. This is the one. I know I called it YT auth guard. And for token source, we're going to type in authorization. And this will allow us, so you have to have an authorized token. I'm going to create it. Cool. And now we're going to go back to our resources. And you can see here, here's our jokes API that it just created. Now if I click on any here, and I look at this method request, right now it's set up to AWS IAM. We really want to set it up to something else. Now we just created that authorizer and it's not showing, so we just have to do a quick refresh of the page. We're going to click method request again. Down here, cool. Now we have our Cognito user pool authorizers. We're going to do that one. We're going to save it. And one last thing we have to do is, I always like to double check after I do it to make sure it's still there. Yep. I go to actions, and then we're going to deploy API to our dev, and this will just take a moment. Don't forget the deploy part or it will never work for you. So that's all we're going to do for configuration for right now. So let's deep dive into the code and see how we can set up our Authenticator. All right, so we have everything set up, but we need to jump into the React app and get that all taken care of. So I think what we're going to do first is we're going to add some CSS. Just get that out of the way. So there's this app CSS file. We can go ahead and delete it all. And we're just going to copy and paste our own CSS here. I'm just going to do this real quickly. It's just to add some navigation, some basic flex, and just center everything on the screen. That'll make more sense once we get into the actual code. Let's create some components. In our source, I'm going to create a components folder. Components. What we want to do is we want to have several different routes, at least 3 routes, and then a bunch of components for those routes. So let's do that. We're going to have a home route, and we're going to have a login, and we're going to have a we're going to have this protected route. We'll call it protected first, and then we're going to have a second one. New file, protected second. All right, so I have 4 different components here, and now let's see if we can just copy and paste some code. So export function home, and we'll just return, we'll just return an h1 home. Okay, so now we have several different components. Now let's work on creating our App.js. Well, let's go into our index.js first. So in our index.js, we need to set a few things up. First, we probably should do our Amplify. You can see we have this AWS exports file, and we want to make sure that when the app loads that we set up Amplify. So I'm going to import in Amplify from AWS. It's AWS Amplify. And then we can do an amplify.configure, and we'll have to import one more. We're going to import in AWS exports from AWS exports, and we're going to use it here. This is all we need to do to configure Amplify at the beginning. It'll automatically look at this exports file that was generated when we did the Amplify add auth and Amplify init. And this will have all the configurations for our auth. Now, the next thing we need to do is let's look at our app app.js file. And I think in this file, what we need to do is create our routes and also basically set everything up here. So first, I just want to delete all this. And I'm just going to do a hello world. Go back to my app here, refresh it. So now I need to start it again. All right, so our app loaded, hello world. That's what we sort of expected here. And we can move on. So I'm going to create some routes. So I'm going to create a function. It's going to be called myRoutes. And we're going to return a few things. Now I'm going to have to do an import in here to get everything we need. Let's see here. We're going to need a browser router. And I'm going to have to import that in. So import in browser router from React router DOM. And then inside this, we have this routes. And by the way, if you're confused on what these are, the official documentation for React Router 6 has all this information. So I would look that up. You also need something called route. So now we can do some routes. So in each route, we're going to have this layout route that's it's going to circle everything else. So we're going to put path equals that and element equals, and from here we want to import the layout route. So we're going to import in layout from, and I believe it's on the components folder, layout. And then we just kind of put it in like this. There we go. Looks okay there. And I'll just self-close this. And well, this layout route actually is going to be the route that's kind of encompassing everything else. So let's actually not self-close it. Okay. And then we'll just come here. And then we're going to have another route. And we'll have index element equals home. And this will be closing, self-closing. We don't have this home yet, so let's import in home from components / home. So let's see if these two work. First thing I need to do real quickly is in our components layout, we need an outlet. Otherwise, this doesn't make much sense. So let's add an outlet. And that basically tells React Router that this is going to need, this is where we're going to insert everything in the route. So we'll do something like this. I don't know, just for now. Paste this here, and we need to add in this outlet. So we're going to import outlet from React Router DOM. Cool. And we just have one more issue. I have to close this here. Okay. So let's take a look and see what it says. Module cannot find component. Oh, I misspelled home. So go back to App.js. Components. And we'll see now, right now, all we have is just returning the hello world. So let's change this up. We're going to delete this. And let's see if we just have my routes. Save it. Back over. Okay, cool. We have a layout and a home. Just something really simple. Obviously, nothing there yet, but we do see our home and layout, which is good. And a sad face. One thing we should do real quickly is for the Authenticator, something you don't want to forget is there is this Authenticator component, and this is from AWS. Oops, this should be AWS Amplify UI React. And we need to surround, since we're going to be using routes and we need to determine where everything is, we need to surround our app by Authenticator provider. Otherwise, things will not work right. So let's do that. Cool. And if we come back over here, obviously nothing's changed, but now we have this Authenticator provider, and this is going to let us use the pattern later on where we're going to be able to grab the route. Or basically, we're going to be able to understand if the user is authenticated or not authenticated. Okay, I think we should continue on. So we have this route index for home. So we're going to have another route. And this is going to be our protected route. So we're going to have protected here. And that's going to be element equals. And for right now, we'll just do protected, but we'll eventually create another component so we can actually protect this route. And we want to do the same thing again, but this is going to be protected second. We'll do protected first, protected second, and then we need a login route. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and this is going to be, we're going to have a path here. It's going to be login, and this is going to be login. So first, we're going to have to import all these in. So let's import them in. We got protected first from .components, protected first. We're going to have protected second. And this is going to be protected second. Great. And then we need login. So we'll do one last one. Import login from components login, and we'll just put that right there. Okay, so no errors, but obviously we need to have some way to change between these different routes, but so far it looks okay, minus a few extra problems. But let's see here. Let's go to slash. We know that home's the first route, but let's go to slash. We have protected. Let's do protected 2. I guess that should make more sense. So we're going to have login. It's the login. Okay. Then we're going to have protected. Here's protected first. And then if we go to protected 2, protected second. Okay, so we have all our routes in, minus a extra ending there. Okay. And then we also have one extra one there. So let's see here with this layout. Let's go into the layout. And we also have one right there. Okay, so here's the layout. So let's make the layout look a little bit nicer, so it makes more sense. What we want to do here. Okay, so I'm going to add in a few things. First, I want to import in our Authenticator. So this is a tool this is a hook that we have that allows us to kind of find out with our Authenticator, which we'll add in a second, what it's doing. If it's authenticated or not authenticated and what route it's on. So I'm going to grab from here, I'm going to grab in route and sign out. I'm going to grab this use authenticator hook, and let's go use authenticator hook. You have to tell it the context. So we're going to have to tell it to context.route, and this helps with re-renders. And so context.signout. And if, by the way, if you're completely confused by this, if you go to the official documentation for the Amplify Authenticator, go to Components, Authenticator, and go all the way to the bottom where this says Full API. It'll explain to you how this works. So you can see access authenticated user, and you want to do context.user. There's also accessing route, context.route. So that's how I got that from. So I'm grabbing the sign out and route from it. And you can grab a bunch of things from this use authenticator that helps you when you're using the Amplify UI. Great. And then so I want to also, I'm going to grab this navigate, and you're going to use this new use navigate. And that is also going to be part of the React Router DOM. This use navigate. That's a hook that helps you with navigation for the React Router. And we're going to do a log out. And that's just going to call this sign out. And it's going to navigate to the login page. Okay, so right now all we have is these two. So let's do this. Let's add a nav. And then inside the nav, we're going to add some buttons. So the first one we're going to add is home. We want a home button at the top. And then we want a different one. that says first protected route, and another one that says second protected route. And we also want a button that says login or log out, depending if the user is logged in or logged out. So first, let's do this. This one, we want an on-click handler on this. And we just want to go to navigate. That's what we're going to do there. So it navigates to the home. Then this one, this is going to navigate to protected. And then this on-click is going to navigate to protected 2. And same thing, if this is supposed to be like this, I'm going to create arrow function. Okay. And then this next one's going to be a little more tricky, but let's do this. If route, so now we have this route that we got from this use authenticator. We'll say if it does not equal authenticated, then we want to show this button, which will be a button. It's going to have an on-click handler 2, which is going to equal navigate to the login. So it's going to say login. So if you're not authenticated, you have this button here. You can click on it. It goes to login. However, if you are logged in, then we want to have another sort of button. This is for your logout. And this on-click handler will work a little bit differently. It's going to go and run logout. And we're going to have a nav here. And then I'm going to have an H1 that says, welcome to this simple route app. And then I'm going to have a span. And the span will say if, once again, we'll do another check. If route equals authenticated, then we're going to put you are logged in. Otherwise, we want to put in please log in. And we just need to make sure that we close this. And we use the proper, there we go. Just had to fix some of that. And then at the bottom we'll have the outlet. Okay, so let's see what it looks like now. Cool, so now we have a home button. First, so if we hit home, goes to home. First protected route, second protected route, and then our login page. Awesome, so now we have all 4 buttons, but obviously we want to do a few more things here. So let's add a little bit to the home route. Let's take a look at the home route real quickly. The home component. And it just says home, but I think it probably should say a few other things. Let's make this an H3. And I'm going to put in here, please use the buttons at the top to test out protected routes. Okay, so I refresh it. If I'm on the home page, this is basically like the index. It says, please use the buttons at the top to test out the protected routes. It says, please log in. And right now we don't have any protection. So I think the next thing we want to do is just let's see if we can log in. Before we protect any of the routes or do anything like that, let's see if we could just simply log in. So let's add a login feature. So we're gonna here's our login. First, we want to show the authenticator. So once again, we're gonna have to import it in. So we're gonna import in Authenticator from AWS Amplify UI React, and we'll return Authenticator. And there's also a thing called with Authenticator. We can actually surround our whole app with the Authenticator, but obviously we're not going to do that here. Okay, it kind of looks ugly because we need to do one other thing. We can do this in a couple of different places, but let's just do it here. We're going to import in AWS Amplify UI React styles.css to styles. Now if we save that, refresh it, cool. So now we have like our modern looking authenticator that allow us to log in and log out. This is completely customizable, by the way. If you go back to the Amplify UI doc site, you can change all the different variables. You can make it completely look a whole lot different if you wanted. I'm not going to get into that, but you can notice that this is customizable to the colors and themes of your application if you wanted and you didn't want to do it with this style. So we have the login. We have this a way to log in now, but what happens after you log in? Usually what happens, anything between the in between the opening and closing brackets would be, you would put things in here if you were logged in. But for the purpose of this, we're going to do things a little, we have to do it with routes. So we're going to change things up from what you might be doing if this is only one authenticator that wraps your whole app. So I'm going to grab, and once again, I need the with authenticator. Oops, not with authenticator, use authenticator. And we're also going to grab in, I think from React, we're going to import in use effect. And I'll show you how this works with React. And then we need a couple things from the React router. So we're going to use navigate and use location from React router. And I think that's all we need right here. So let's begin. So in this login here, I'm going to grab in that route again, and from use authenticator. And remember, we always have to put in this context to help prevent re-renders, just like the official documentation mentions. And we also need a location. So we're going to use this use location. We're going to use navigate. We're going to grab that from use navigate. And one thing we want to do too is that if someone goes to a protected route, like this first protected route or a second protected route, I want to remember that, redirect them to login, and when they log in, have it go to that one of those protected routes. So this is a neat little trick. This was in the official documentation from React Router. So if you do let location and then we'll do let from, and we'll have that equal location.state.from.pathname, or just the root. Now it'll know that we can use this from to look at the state of their last place they were at, essentially. So now we're going to use this use effect. And in this use effect, I want to say if the route equals authenticated, if I spelled that right, authenticated, then we need to navigate to the from, and we'll do replace equals true. And this will log it into the last place they were at if they were one of those protected routes. Otherwise, it'll go to the root. And then for this use effect, we'll put in here route, navigate, and from. And one thing also I want to do with this return statement is we have this, I'm going to put this wrapper around here that'll make it center it and everything from the CSS we already created. This div will have a class name of auth wrapper. I'll put it in here, and we'll make sure we close it. Okay, so now our login, we go to login. Now we should be able to log in. So we haven't created any accounts or anything yet from this. What it should do though, based on our code here, is it should log us in to the app. Okay, let's try to log in. I'm going to create a login here. I'm going to create test@gmail.com. I'm going to click create account. Cool, it's going to ask me for a password. Just using an old email address here. I'm checking my email now from my other screen, putting it in, confirm. Cool, so it logged me in. It says now you're logged in here, and it rerouted me to this home route. Now I can check. Obviously, these aren't doing anything, but if I click logout, let's say I click second protected route. Well, I can't really do it right now because these aren't protected, but at least we have a way to log in. And you can see it rerouted us to the home page, essentially. All right, I click logout, and it logs out. So the next thing we need to do is see if we can get some of these other routes working. So we did the home, we have the layout, we have the login, but we don't have any of these protected ones. To protect these routes, I'm going to put here in a second to grab stuff from our Lambda, but we need another component. So I'm going to create one. It's going to be called RequireAuth. So new file, RequireAuth.js. And inside this RequireAuth, we are going to basically surround any component that we want to be protected that only should work if they're logged in. So I'm going to grab use location and navigate from React router DOM. I'm going to grab use Authenticator. Once again, from the AWS Amplify UI React. And we're going to export function RequireAuth, and we'll assume one of the props will be the children. So we're going to use this location here. This is going to grab us information about their, obviously, location. And we need to grab the route again. And it's a little bit of writing, but we're going to do context.route. And if route does not equal authenticated, then we want to do something. Then we want to return, and then we have this navigate. This is another way to do it. We'll do login, and then we'll set the state from this location, and we'll do replace. Otherwise, if everything's fine, we'll just return the children. So what this is saying here is that this RequireAuth, it's going to surround a other component, which is going to be basically the children. If it finds out that the route is not authenticated by using our use Authenticator method right here, it's going to navigate someone to the login page. It's going to save the state and then replace it. So now we should be able to use this to be able to protect routes. Now there's another way to do this if you were having problems with this route. There is this auth.current authenticated user. You can grab that out of the AWS Amplify library and use this instead of using this route if you have problems with the route. But from my testing, it seems to work okay with this authenticated user. So now we got to go back to the app. And so now for these two protected routes, we should be able to surround them inside this new RequireAuth. So I'm going to import in RequireAuth from this one. I just put in RequireAuth. I don't think I put it in the components folder. And then in this element right here, I'm just going to simply surround it by it. So it's another component, RequireAuth. And I'm just going to move this over. There it is. And the second one, we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do some copy and pasting here. Maybe. Let's see here. Right here. RequireAuth. And then I'm going to copy this. Paste it. Okay, so now we have both protected and protected 2 surrounded by RequireAuth. So let's see what it's doing here. Oh, I misspelt it. So yeah, this is misspelt right here. Authenticator. So this is the right spelling. So use authentic. Too many ENs there. Okay, let's see if that worked. Okay. So if I click any of these, you can see here it flashes for a second, but it's basically rerouting back to it. Now, normally, if you were just you wouldn't have buttons to protected routes. It's kind of weird, but if you did it like this, it just instantly reroutes back to this login page. If you find that there's issues here, you could always, in our protected routes, we can add a little bit more safety on this. So I'll show you. So in this protected route here, we could check to see if the route is authenticated or not, the same way we did before with using the use authenticator and grabbing the route out of it, and be like, if it's authenticated, then send a message. Otherwise, put a loading screen. So you can add like a loading spinner, but for the sake of this demo, we're not going to do it. If you look at the code, it's up to you if you guys want to add that in or not. But I think for now, just with the testing, you can see here, I'm not really having any issues. It's not really displaying the text. It just works. So it's just rewriting back to login. And by the way, so if we click first protected route and we put in our email and we sign in, it went to the first protected route. But if I click second route, let's see this. If I click home and then second protected route and I log in, same thing. It rerouted to the protected route. And if you refresh it, everything seems to be fine. It's showing protected second, looks good. Everything's fine there. So now we have essentially protected routes. We have these protected routes. We have a login system. Everything seems to be working okay. So the last thing we want to do is that when you go to one of these protected routes, we want to actually see the Lambda function, talk to the Lambda function, and actually get data out of it. So let's go ahead and do that next. Let's take a look at this protected route. So it doesn't really do much now, except it just shows protected first. I want to add in a new function here. So first, we're going to import in this new API. So if you can import this in API, it's from AWS Amplify, and it's really a nice way to connect with APIs, Lambda functions, things like that, using Amplify, especially if they have their own Lambda function you set up through the API gateway and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new, we're also going to actually import one more thing, use Authenticator, spelt right this time. And let's see if we can do this. So we're gonna grab the user from equals use authenticator. Once again, we're gonna grab the context. And if I did that right, we would have a closing bracket. And this is gonna be context.user. And we're going to grab some React stuff here. We're going to import in this use state from React. And so we're going to do jokes and then set jokes. And that's going to be from this use state, and we'll just have it empty. And I'm going to create this async function called getJoke. What this is going to do, it's going to talk to our backend Lambda function that's protected through the authorizer that we just created, and we're going to see if we can get the information out of it. So we're going to request info, and so we need to have some headers. So we're going to construct this authorization header, and this is going to actually require a token that we need to get from user. So we don't need to put bearer in front of it, but we do need to grab user. It's going to be sign in user session.id token.jwt token, and we actually don't need to get it, so I'm going to delete this get. It's going to be sign in user session id token jwt token. And now we're going to have some data. We're going to await api.get. And first it's going to ask us a few things. And if you look at this api.get, we need the API name, the path, and the init. So we know that the first one is /jokes. That's what we did it. And we know we're going to send this request info for the second one there. But we don't know the first. We don't know the first one. So let's check what it is. So I think I have this tab open up twice. If I do Amplify status, it's going to give us the names of everything we just created earlier in this video. This will just take a second. Okay, so what we need to do for this one is we need this API guard 1 is the name. So we're going to call this API guard 1. And that's because that's the name of the API that we set up. Okay, so if we did this all correctly, we should have some data coming back. So I'm going to console log the data and then also set jokes for data that's coming in. And then instead of just saying protected first here, we're going to return a few things. Let's return it like this. And then we also want a button. And we want on click, we want every time it clicks, we want it to hit that Lambda function that we created. And so this should hit get joke. And then we're going to call this get joke from the backend. And then we'll just put right here, we'll put it at the bottom, I guess. We'll put it the jokes. Okay. So if I did that correctly, now our protected route should be able to hit this API and return the information to us. So let's see what happens here. So we have to log in first. I'm gonna log in with my old email address. Okay, protect second. I'm gonna go to protect it first. Get joke from backend. And cool. Where do you cows eat lunch? In the cafeteria. Get it? It's pretty funny. And then I guess we can add a break here. I mean, obviously, if we did this right, we'd probably use flex or grid, make it look nice. So where do you get cows from? In the cafeteria. Click it again. Why didn't you find hippopotamus hiding in trees? They're really good at it. Where does Napoleon keep his armies? In his sleeveys. What do you do when your bunny gets wet? You get your hair dryer. See, that's pretty funny. And now we have created a protected route. It's grabbing information from a Lambda function that we created earlier. And just to show you that it works, let's go back to our API, App.js, and let's take this away from this first one, this protected first. So it's no longer protected. So if we come here and we go first protected route and I click this, it doesn't work. I didn't get any messages here, but if you look inside the console and they do it again, you can see here, it's giving us a cannot read properties undefined, reading sign in user session. If we look at network, well, the problem is right now is that it's not even doing the call because it's looking at this JWT token and it's not there. So it can't do it. But if you were able to do it, let's say we just get rid of this for a second. We just send no authorization header because we don't have one. And we try it again. Now we get a 401. So the 401, you probably can't see it very well, but essentially, let's see here. The 401 says it's unauthorized. If you go to response and headers, let's see here, response, unauthorized. So it's definitely an unauthorized request because we don't have any of the tokens or anything set up correctly to do it. All right, so that's it. I hope you guys learned a lot. This was a lot of information, but you could see how easy this was to create a simple app authentication on our app. Didn't take too long. We have now a secure backend. We have some protected routes. It works great. So let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions, comments, and make sure if you guys like this, you made it all the way to the end, click that like button, share it with your friends, become a subscriber. That would be really help me out. And then, give us feedback too. Thanks.